right, let's bring in the MPs to discuss this and try to explain what's going on in the suddenly toxic House of Commons. Our MPs are in the foyer. As I said, our studio has been evacuated due to this gas rupture in downtown Ottawa. And there's Liberal There's Liberal MP Marco Mendicino. He's hailing from Toronto. Conservative MP Karen Vecchio from southwestern Ontario. And heckler Nathan Cullen comes to us for the NDP from northern British Columbia. Helpful. Okay, fair enough. All right.
Helpful.
I do want to talk about the Sajan case. We brought that up. He's still under attack. Nathan Cullen, you're no stranger to attacking government MPs and ministers. Why are you keeping it up? The military wants it closed, and he's apologized repeatedly.
Well, the apologies are, of course, important, and then there's the actions that follow. I guess there's a concern that we have. I didn't know this term. I don't know if my colleagues knew it, but stolen valor. This is, my family has some military experience, but it's certainly not me. This idea of taking credit for something that happened in the field of conflict, boosting up your CV. Maybe some people do that, but when you're going to lead the defense forces, that's it's not something that inspires confidence in the troops. There's a second thing, and we're worried about a second piece that the minister said, and this is to the ethics commissioner, because he has claimed, and I don't think this is disputed actually, that he was a key part of the intelligence gathering in the mission. Well, part of that mission fell under some controversy because there was a potentially illegal transfer of detainees to the Afghan authorities. These are the same ones that Mr. Sajan is given credit for having great contact with, and he was the one interfacing between them. But he told the ethics commissioner he had no knowledge of any detainees going to those exact same Afghan authorities. And that's why the ethics commissioner dropped the case. So this all harkens back to his credibility, Don, which is an important thing in politics. And if one thing that was caught as a lie then turns into another thing that doesn't support another statement, one starts to really wonder about the defense minister's credibility, which the defense minister needs to have credibility, not just for the troops, but also for Canadians broadly.
Now, Karen, you're a very forgiving, nice person. Are you willing to forgive and forget, or do you still want this guy to walk the plank?
Well, I think we have seen that he did this back in 2015. He's done it again now. As Nathan said, it's stolen valor. Today, we had two of our members of parliament who are veterans. So we had Pierre-Paul Hoos and Luba Clark, who both questioned the minister. So I think when you're hearing it from our own people in our caucus that are veterans, as well as the media that has had several people coming out from the Canadian Forces saying, like, he shouldn't have done this. The stolen valor is a big part. And the thing is, when it comes to the military family, that's exactly what they are. They have one another's backs. Nobody is better than anybody else. They all work together. And that's what makes us such a strong military and such a great country. And that is something that the minister should not have done. So I believe that the sorry is one thing, but his actions are definitely not what we're seeing in the House of Commons are satisfying.
Marco, you know, speaking of his actions, I got to say there's a fundraiser tonight, a major fundraiser for injured veterans and combat victims, and it's a blue chip event, and I'm going to it after this show. But your guy, Sajan, the Minister Sajan, was a keynote speaker there, and he suddenly bowed out earlier today. Didn't he miss a chance to at least address veterans by showing up at that fundraiser instead of skulking away with a guilty look on his face?
Well, he has addressed the concerns that have been expressed about some remarks, and he's admitted that they were a mistake. He's apologized sincerely on numerous occasions, both outside of the House and during the course of question period. And my colleague Nathan mentioned the word valor. Even the opposition doesn't question the valor that Minister Sajan showed during his many tours of duty. So what I can tell you is that the minister remains very focused on his mandate, which includes important initiatives regarding NATO and peacekeeping and procurement for the men and women in uniform that he served with. And I know that he honors their courage, which they show day in and day out.
All right, I want to switch gears because there's some weird stuff going on in the House of Commons and in the surrounding committees. Today, Tom Mulcair was up. He called Bardish Chagger, the House Leader, a buffoon, and he said, where's the organ grinder? You're not the monkey. And he did apologize for that. But then we have Scott Reid, an MP that's kind of mild-mannered, unleashing profanity at a committee because he said the tactics went against promises. And then we got like day 7 or something in the House talking about an obscure incident on Parliament Hill where MPs were cut off from getting to a vote by security. What is going on up there? Marco, explain this to me.
Marco's going to tell us. Please tell us what's going on.
Well, look, temperatures are obviously getting hot, but I can tell you on the government side, we're keeping cool heads. And I just want to point out that Minister Chagger, in particular, becomes the focus of a lot of this vitriol. And today we saw an example that was way beyond the pale. And it's unfortunate and regrettable when we see emotions get the better of us. And the leader of the NDP, somebody who has served in this House for a number of years, I think was quite right to retract and apologize for those comments. But it speaks to a pattern that we've been seeing, and I think, Don, you mentioned it in the context of your question. What Canadians want is thoughtful, sober, reflective debate on the priorities that matter to them. The government remains focused on doing that. And with regards to the question of parliamentary privilege and what occurred at the Proc Committee, all parties and all members of the House agreed that we should hear this matter expeditiously. And so that's what occurred today. We took concrete steps to put this matter to debate in the House so that we could be sure that members are able to access the parliamentary precinct, I beg your pardon, in an unfettered manner so that they can do the business of the people.
All right, Nathan, your guy was the guy that unleashed the name-calling today, but he's not the only one that's guilty. Why is the mood seemingly so toxic and divisive all of a sudden?
Well, I don't know if it is actually all of a sudden. I mean, if you remember back to the infamous Motion 6, the Liberals brought in and then retracted almost a year ago, where they tried to give themselves pretty much total power over what happens in Parliament, shut down debate, all the rest of it. I can recall that. I mean, this government was elected to change that tone. If you remember, this is, not trying to be partisan, but the final couple of years of the Harper government, one of the main criticisms, often coming from Liberals and people like me, was there was too much control. Debates were getting shut down all the time. It was hard to do our jobs, which is to hold government to account. Yet we've seen this toxicity come back, and I think you just got to agree to some basic principles. Like, the Liberals want to change the way that Parliament works. Okay. Well, one of the long-standing traditions from Harper, Chrétien, Mulroney, first Trudeau, was that you don't change the rules of Parliament unless you get all the parties to agree. Seems fair, so that no one can change the rules, especially of the government, to help out the government. And the Liberals just won't agree to that. And it just seems to me like, well, if you keep doing these things that really put the opposition backs up against the wall, well, what are we supposed to do? We either keep backing up or we push back. And it seems to me just on the basic thing, I mean, we had to have a little warning go on before the video of the procedure in House Affairs for foul language from Scott Reid, who's got to be like one of the most nicest, quietest people. But he was enraged because that committee just got hammered today, and that's a problem.
It would be nice to hear Nathan acknowledge that there was an apology.
Oh, yeah, no, Tom was right to, he was wrong to say what he said, and he was right to apologize. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Marco, we heard that off the top. Karen, help me here. Explain this.
I'm going to start with Nathan. Nathan's absolutely right. You've got Scott Reid, who is an excellent member of Parliament representing the Conservative caucus in the Procedures in House Affairs today. We talk about the fact that this privilege is coming up. First of all, we haven't even voted in the House of Commons on this privilege motion, so it is not actually sitting in Proc right now. What happened today, I've watched some of the video, and what happened today was you had the chair, Larry Bagnall, come in, close down debate right from there, and you need unanimous consent to close down that committee and those are things, they're making their own rules, and this is some of the problems that we're seeing. It is a very toxic situation here. I know I came back from 2 wonderful weeks in the constituency, and on day 1, you already feel that toxicity here. It has a lot to do with the leadership. I recognize there's some excellent government members, but there are some other members that are sitting there kind of poking and prodding to see how far they can push the opposition, and we can't be pushed when it comes to the fact we are representing Canadians. All of us are representing Canadians, and we want to be the voice of Canadians.
June 22nd is coming, and you'll be free for the summer. So anyway, thank you all. I'm out of time. Appreciate your comments.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks.
Coming up.